All right. What's up, everybody? Jimmy V here. I guess I'm live. So great to be with all of you guys. As always, today I'm talking about what a government shutdown means for VA loans. So if you haven't been watching already, there's talk, and I feel like this happens every, 6 to 12 months. But basically, there's talk of a government shutdown. So anytime this happens, right, there's some implications involved for federal workers. And what I want to talk about today is what that means for VA loans. Good to go. And how, if you're in the market to purchase a home, how it could impact you, right? That's important to know. So that way you can make an informed buying decision for you and your family when it comes to utilizing your VA home loan benefit. So I'll let some time build here for our live stream together. It'll be interesting to see how many people join, always competing with the NFL. So we'll see what happens. But last week I was kind of pleasantly surprised, or week before last, there were a lot of you on here, had me go for an hour, just kind of, answering your questions, right? Just kind of sounding off. And I thought the time was well invested. So my point in sharing that is if you do have questions about VA home loans, doesn't even have to be government shutdown related. All right, let me know. I'll make sure to answer them for you. Anything, right? I just want you to understand your VA home loan benefit. So that way, when the time comes that you're ready to purchase a home, right, you have a deep understanding of how this benefit works. All right. I believe in the power of VA loans. I believe in the power of home ownership. It helps veterans to build and create wealth. Roger that. So just getting back from Las Vegas here, not for the reason one would expect. Took my son there for a tennis tournament over the weekend, and we made it to the quarterfinals, guys. That's a big step in the right direction. So one of the things that I'm learning about tennis, right, is that you kind of measure small progress. Tennis is unique because, there can only be one winner every week. So it can kind of be, as one pro put it, kind of a lonely sport. But if you're measuring progress, right, on each match, right, kind of how far you get in a draw, right, these are all wins. So we got a couple of wins, made it to the quarterfinals, and I'm proud of my son, got back today. And here we are again. So nevertheless, let's go ahead and get started. So the government shutdown, or should I say the looming government shutdown. So here's what's going to happen in the next 24 hours. People are going to try and scare the heck out of you, okay? All right, government's going to shut down. What does that mean for my VA disability income? What does it mean for my VA home loan, right? Is everything going to shut down at the VA? Is my house going to be able to close on time? Will VA loans still be available? Like, understandable concerns. Good to go. But remember, the media's entire job is to put fear in us so we continue to watch their networks, right? Can I get an amen? So they want to instill fear in us. But here's what I want to remind each and every single one of you about the VA home loan. A government shutdown has very little to do with the VA home loan benefit. And here's the reason why, okay? The VA does not lend the money. You guys with me on that? VA doesn't lend the money. The only thing that the VA does is guarantee the loan. Okay, the VA guarantees the loan by 25%. So the question becomes, well, who does lend the money? It's the mortgage company. The mortgage lender is lending you, the veteran watching this video right now, the mortgage company is lending you the money. All the VA does is just guarantee it. Okay, so meaning they guarantee it in the event of default. So my point in sharing that is the VA has relatively little to no involvement throughout the process. Now, there are some things that they do kind of involve themselves on that I think is important for you to know. But overall, I want you to understand very little involvement. So the involvement that they do have, okay, let's talk about that for a second. In the event that the government shuts down, what could happen is that certificates of eligibility, right, may not be issued if you have to go directly to the VA. In other words, somebody is manually processing those and sending them to you. Now, there is a workaround, right? So if for some reason federal workers at the VA got furloughed, right, there is a workaround, and that is to work with a mortgage lender who is directly endorsed with the VA. Now, let me explain to you what that means, right? We have the ability to go directly to the VA through a system called WebLGY. And this system allows us to retrieve copies of your certificate of eligibility. So in other words, it's done in an automated fashion. We don't even have to go to the VA, right? So in situations like that, if you're looking for a home or getting pre-qualified and for some reason or another, the government does end up shutting down, right? This is all going to be able to kind of be done business as usual, having little to no impact or effect on you at all. I know I could scare the you know what out of you, right? And lead you to believe that it's, all hell is going to break loose. But in my professional opinion, it's business as usual. Okay, it's business as usual. So like I said, the VA doesn't lend the money. All they do is guarantee the loan, right? It's the lender lending you the money. I'm not going anywhere. Mortgage lenders aren't going anywhere. Mortgage lending will not be shutting down on Tuesday or whatever the case may be, all right? So if you're just joining, my name is Jimmy Vercellino. I'm a Marine vet, specialized in VA loans. I'm just hanging out with you this evening, answering VA loan questions live. Okay, no set agenda, right? Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I did want to talk about the looming government shutdown and the impact that that's going to have on VA loans, because you're going to hear a lot about it over the next 24 to 48 hours if a deal does not get done. Tracking? Okay, so if you have questions about your VA loan, I don't care what it is, drop it in the comment section. Guys, I don't have a particular kind of, like I said, agenda overall. I want to make sure that I'm not the one just talking to what I think you guys want to know and understand, right? So if you have something in particular or something on your heart that you want to ask about VA loans, please drop it in the comment section and I'll do my best to get it answered for you. Roger that. So my Raiders today lost in a heartbreaking fashion, blocked field goal. That's what I get for being a Raiders fan. But nevertheless, still got to represent the silver and black. Some things will never change. But anyhow, Cowboys and Green Bay on right now, that's probably going to be a good one too. But, anytime your team loses, I'm sure you probably understand. It's like, oh, man, I can't watch more football. Yeah, I'm good. So wanted to pop on here and chat with you guys. But, yeah, so tell me what you're thinking. So like I said, government shutdown, not really a big deal. Now, here's how it could theoretically impact VA loans. Let's say that an appraisal needed to be reviewed by a SAR, or a staff appraiser review, meaning the appraiser needed to kind of be looked at by somebody at the VA. Yeah, that could have an impact, okay? Does that happen very often? No, not really, okay? So I really don't ever see that taking place with VA loans. In rare circumstances, if something needs to be looked at by a VA appraiser for some reason or another, it could. Now, in VA joint loan situations, okay, now this is where it could impact a VA loan if the government did end up getting shut down, but these are kind of minor occurrences. They don't happen very often, but a VA joint loan is basically where a veteran, non-veteran who's not married, right, are purchasing a home together. The first thing that you need to know about that is that it does require a down payment. Okay. Now, if you've been watching for a minute here, you may remember me saying all the VA does is guarantee the loan by 25%. Tracking? So if the VA guarantees the loan by 25% and you as the veteran want to buy a home with a non-veteran who's not your spouse, okay, brother, sister, friend that you want to invest with, here's what the VA says. You have to come in with a 12.5% down payment. 12.5% down. And the reason why is because if the VA guarantees 12.5%, or 25%, they cut it in half. They cut it in half for the non-veteran. Now, if you're buying a house with your spouse, no money down, okay? No money down. But the point of me sharing that is in those circumstances or situations, the VA joint loan has to be sent to the Department of Veterans Affairs Regional Loan Office to be underwritten and approved. In a situation like that, once again, if the government employee got furloughed for some reason or another, government shutdown, that could impact your ability to purchase a home if you were doing a VA joint loan. So here's my point in sharing this. When you're working with a mortgage loan originator, okay, ask them these questions up front. What impact will the government shutdown have on my VA home loan benefit? And if they tell you, well, very little, and for some reason or another, you're getting a VA joint loan, and they're going to say, well, why are you asking that? You say, well, because I perhaps heard otherwise. In this case, Jimmy Vercellino, the Marine vet who specializes in VA loans, told me otherwise. But like I said, I don't expect that to take place. And I'm glad you guys are doing your homework. on the VA home loan benefit. So what questions do you have? I see there's a few of us watching here. Chime in with what branch of service you were in. What questions do you have over the VA home loan benefit? I could kind of ramble on all day, but like I said, I want to make sure that I'm answering your questions specifically, so that way you know how to go out there and, you know, manage this benefit. Good to go. So we've seen interest rates go up over the course of the last probably 5 days, 6 days or so. So many of you probably remember just over a week ago, the Fed decreased the federal funds rate. Okay. Now, this is where a lot of veterans and really anybody gets confused. When they hear that, they think, oh, yeah, sweet, dude, mortgage interest rates are going lower, right? Well, here's what happened. Mortgage rates, right, had that already baked in to the current pricing. And when the Federal Reserve came together and cut the federal funds rate by 25 basis points, who followed afterwards was Fed Chair Jerome Powell. And basically what he said was, you know, the fight for inflation, or the fight over inflation, is not over. And there's still inflationary concerns that are presenting themselves in the market. So for those of you watching, if you're buying a home, the biggest rival to mortgage rates, or the enemy, the arch nemesis of mortgage rates, is inflation. Higher the inflation, right, the higher the interest rate. The lower the inflation, lower the mortgage interest rate. So as a result, over the last 4 days, we've seen VA rates steadily increase each and every single day. It's like, oh my gosh, man, this is not what we were hoping for, right? However, right, I think long-term, if you zoom out, the fight against inflation, right, is still there, number one. But number two, we're steadily extinguishing inflation. You're seeing it go lower and lower and lower over a gradual period of time. Now, would we like it to be faster? Of course we would, right? And if that happens, I think that we're going to see mortgage interest rates continue to go lower as a result. So I have a question here. SAS guy asks, can I use my VA compensation and workman's comp to qualify for a VA loan? So this is a good question. Absolutely, you can use your VA disability income if that's what you're asking, SAS. No problem at all. Now, workman's comp, depending upon how long you're going to be receiving it, that can vary, right? Depending upon, once again, how long you're going to receive it. Oftentimes that's going to be underwriter discretion, okay? So I actually just had an email come in and says, how can I find a good VA lender? And that's a good question, right? So, you know, full disclosure, I'm here to be a resource. I am a mortgage loan originator. I do specialize in VA loans, and I would be honored to serve you. If you want to book a free 15-minute consult with me, you're welcome to do so. All you need to do is go to my website. I'll type in the chat box here, VAloansforvets.com, and you can schedule a time to speak with me there. Good to go. But like I was saying about, you know, interest rates as a whole, I do suspect that in Q4, right, in this case, you know, call it the winter, in Q1, Q2 of 2026, that mortgage rates will continue to go lower. But, you know, what we're starting to see a lot more of now is refinancing, right? So quick, you know, show of hands here. If anybody owns a home in the chat box, will you just chime in and say whether or not you own? If you do own a home, I want to hear from you. And here's the reason why I'm saying that. Because I suspect that there's going to be opportunities here in the very near future for you to refinance your mortgage, right? And I actually just uploaded a video on this. Full disclosure, kind of bombed. You know, it's like the life of a, I don't know, I don't want to call myself a YouTuber, but like, you know, the life of somebody who creates content for education. You're always like, yeah, you have high or lofty goals or expectations for a video. And if it doesn't, you know, pan out the way you had hoped, you're kind of like womp womp. But you got to just learn from it, right? You got to learn from, you know, okay, well, what could I have done better? We'll look at it objectively and move on. So that's what I intend to do. But anyways, I'm talking in this video about refinancing and whether or not it makes sense. And there's some things that you need to know, right? Number one, you need to know what the heck is going on in the economy, right? You need to have your finger on the pulse of the marketplace. And in that video, I talk about there's two economic reports. One is the PCE report and the other one is the CPI. These are inflationary reports that the Federal Reserve uses to kind of track or how should I say, amend their monetary policy, which impacts you and your mortgage interest rate long term, right? So you can follow these reports. If they come in lower than expectations, that's good news for mortgage interest rates. Tracking with me on that? The other thing that you have to do is you have to ask, okay, well, what is my reduction in rate going to be? And in that video, I say that usually you're shooting for around a 1% reduction in rate. Everybody following me so far? So follow the market, right? What's going on with inflation? I told you why inflation is important to track, because when inflation goes lower, mortgage rates go lower as well, okay? And this is, truthfully, it doesn't matter if you own a home or not. I mean, this is good information to know. The second part of that is how much are you reducing your interest rate by? Generally speaking, a good rule of thumb, in my opinion, is to shoot for a 1% reduction in rate, okay? 1% reduction in rate. HPN says, keep up the great work. Millions of vets are in need of your guidance and services. Hey, man, I appreciate that, HPN. Much love to you. Thank you for the kind words and words of encouragement. I don't take it for granted. Thank you so much. So like I said, follow the market. How much is your reduction rate? Generally speaking, you want to shoot for about a 1% drop in rate, okay? 1% drop in rate. Now, it doesn't mean that if you dropped it a half or 75 basis points, 3/4 of a percentage point, that it couldn't still make sense. But good general rule of thumb, try and shoot for 1%, okay? Have that conversation with a mortgage loan originator. Like I said, you're welcome to reserve a time to speak with me if you'd like by go to my website. But the last thing is, and this is kind of the question that you need to ask yourself, right? And this is the part that mortgage lenders don't talk about, and it pisses me off, right? Give me a second here. The reason why it's so upsetting is because if in my industry, there's a lot of what I refer to as order takers, okay? People that just sell loans or sell money, but you have to make sure that the loan is custom fit to the veteran's needs. And if it doesn't fit, then you don't sell them that product. It would be like trying to go fit into a suit, a custom tailored suit, right? That was too tight on the waist and short on the, short on the sleeves, etc. It's like, no, dude, I'm not buying that. Well, it doesn't fit. And the same thing is true with a mortgage loan. When you're refinancing a mortgage loan, it has to fit your needs. How do you mean exactly, Jimmy? Well, let's say, for example, that the cost of a refinance was somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, $5,000 total. That's just a random number that I'm throwing out there, but that $5K is what you're rolling into the loan amount. So in that particular instance, right, let's say that the savings was somewhere around, I don't know, $250 a month. Let me pull out my calculator here really quick. So $250 a month. So if I take the $5,000, right? So see if you can follow me along on this. $5,000, right? You with me so far? Divided by $250 a month. That's a 20-month break even. You guys following me along so far? So 20 months divided by 12 means 1.6 years. That means that you have to have that mortgage in place for a minimum of 1.6 years before you refinance. You tracking with me on that? And if you're not in that home for at least 1.6 years or have that mortgage for more than 1.6 years, buying a house, or refinancing your mortgage won't make sense. Because think about it, right? Your rolling costs into the loan, right? You're rolling the closing costs into the loan. There's no out-of-pocket expenses. However, right, you're increasing the loan balance. So every month, right, the first kind of call it, 20 payments are going to covering that increased loan amount. And for the duration thereafter is when your true savings kick in. Even though, yes, you are decreasing your monthly payment by $250 a month. So my point is simply this, right? When you're speaking to a mortgage loan originator and you're considering a refinance, ask them what the break even is. Ask them, what is my ROI, right? And if they fumble and jumble on that, it's like, no, dude, we're not a good fit. You're an order taker, not a mortgage planner. And there's a big difference between those two. I had a veteran watch this channel where a mortgage loan officer told him to go into an FHA loan, Federal Housing Administration loan. You know why he did that? Because the other mortgage loan originator didn't know what in the heck they were talking about. You know what they call that in the medical field when a doctor touches something that they shouldn't? Okay? They call that malpractice. Well, I consider it to be malpractice if a mortgage loan originator, right, puts a veteran into an FHA loan when they otherwise would have qualified for a VA loan. You better have a pretty damn good reason for me, right, to say why you took an FHA loan over a VA loan, because FHA has a 3.5% down payment. It has monthly private mortgage insurance that is with the loan for the duration or the entirety of the loan being in place. Don't tell me that an FHA loan is more competitive. That's nonsense. Don't tell me that a conventional loan has lower interest rates. That's nonsense, right? It also has private mortgage insurance anytime you're borrowing greater than an 80% loan to value ratio. You guys have probably heard me talk about this before, but Dave Ramsey, who I love dearly, I think he's a great man. He's done a lot of good for Americans across the nation, right? He says that VA loans are more expensive. I'm like, dude, not true, right? And this is something that I'm used to. I've been doing this my entire career, and that's overcoming objections, right, when it comes to the VA home loan benefit, because so many people out there are giving us veterans nonsense or bum scoop, and it's kind of all hearsay, things that maybe they've heard along the way. They're like, well, you know, I heard this, or I experienced this, or somebody told me that. It doesn't mean that it's true. Okay, so I want you guys to get it from a reputable source. I consider myself to be a reputable source. I've been serving veterans with all of their VA loan benefits for over 20 years now. Good to go. Ever since I left the Marine Corps in 2005, I've devoted myself and my mortgage practice to the veteran and active duty service home buyer. Good to go. All right, so questions. What questions do you guys have for me? Do you have any questions about VA home loan benefits? If you do, throw it in the chat box. I've only had one question come in, and I've been talking for 22 minutes. Come on, guys. What's up with that? Throw me some questions. Do you have anything at all? I don't care what topic it is. VA home loans, right? I'm answering your questions. I just want you to make sure that that you're getting valuable advice or just valuable answers, so that way you can make an informed buying decision when the time comes that you're ready to utilize your VA home loan benefit. Good to go. So by the way, you're welcome to book a free consult with me if you'd like to do so. I'm not hard to find. You can go to my websites in the chat box, VAloansforvets.com. I can learn a little bit more about your scenario and advise you further. Roger that. So I've talked a little bit about the government shutdown and why I don't really think that's going to have much of an impact on VA loans. So obviously, you know, I'm excited. I'm not excited about that, but obviously, you know, a lot of people will try and instill fear into you, right? I don't think it's going to make much of a difference, because the VA home loan process, by and large, is pretty much automated, right? Remember, the lender is lending you the money. The mortgage company is lending you the money, not the VA. The VA has relatively little to no involvement throughout the process. My name is Jimmy Vercellino. I'm answering VA loan related questions. I'm a Marine Corps vet, mortgage loan originator specializing in VA loans. So if you have a question about a VA loan, drop it in the comment section. I will make sure to answer it for you. Good to go? All right. So I've talked a little bit about, you know, that government shutdown. How about credit scores, right? Do you guys kind of wonder what it is that VA is looking for when it comes to credit scores? Well, I'm going to tell you the answer might surprise you. The VA does not have a minimum credit score requirement on a VA loan. Sass asks the question, how many units can I buy with a VA loan? This is a good question, Sass. Here is your answer, okay? 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 unit, 4 units, okay? Maximum 4 units. Now you have to live in one of the units on a VA loan. I'm glad you bring this up, because I still get a lot of questions. Probably the 2 greatest areas or questions that I get on VA financing types are multi-unit dwellings and construction to perm, building a house with your VA loan. But since you asked the construction side, or excuse me, Multi-unit side, I'll talk about that. So you've got to live in one of the units, right? In addition to that, VA requires that you have 6 months of reserves, mortgage reserves, okay, in that property, or excuse me, for purchasing that home. So say, for example, we'll do math for Marines here, okay? So if the mortgage payment was $1,000, and I can say that I was in the Marine Corps, okay? But if the mortgage payment, I don't want anybody to think I was insulting Marines. The mortgage payment, $1,000, 6 months, $6,000, math for Marines, okay? You got to have $6,000 in the bank, SAS, in order to, right, still be able to purchase that home in addition to the closing costs, right? So you've got to be reserved up. You've got to have some liquidity going into that, right? Why does VA do that? Because, stuff breaks on a 4-unit property. That's, 8 more toilets in a house that could potentially go down, right? You got to be reserved. We want to make sure that we're helping you to purchase a home from a position of strength, right? Not weakness. HP asked the question, when do I think rates will drop to 4%? Simple answer is, I don't know. Do I think that rates will ever drop that low? I don't know. And the reason why I say that is because I need to be convinced through the CPI report and the PCE report that inflation is headed much lower, and I could kind of give you a better educated guess on that. Now, let me let you in on a little secret. A lot of people don't know this. The Fed's target rate, HB, the Federal Reserve is looking for inflation to be at or right around 2%. Okay, so if inflation's at 2%, right, you should see mortgage interest rates come down much lower. I think the last read that I got on the CPI was 2.8%. So we're closer, but they still want it to come down. Okay, so the closer we get to that 2%, I think that we'll see. But since you asked the question, I'll give you my best guess. I think I'll put it to you like this. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw interest rates around 4% in Q3 of 2026. All right. You heard it here first. Sounds like it might take a little while. I agree with you. Refinancing right now doesn't seem to make sense. Yeah, it might not, HP, right? It might not. And use that framework that I shared with you earlier, right, on how to gauge whether or not refinancing makes sense. If you're just joining, I'm answering VA loan questions. I've got some questions coming in here, which is always fun for me. I get to kind of speak to you and your specific needs rather than just me kind of bumping my gums here for 2 hours thinking about you guys, what you might want to know. Sass says, could I buy a multi-unit that needs repair and use the VA loan to cover the repairs? So what you're referring to there is something called a VA renovation loan. Some lenders will do those, some won't. So you'll need to make sure that you're consulting with your lender first and foremost, right? Making sure that that's a product that they offer. Now, keep in mind that VA is only going to allow you to do one of two things. They're going to lend you the money for the house, right? The purchase price or appraised value, whichever is less. Good to go? Let me say that one more time. I want you to hear me on this because I get this question all the time. Purchase price or appraised value, whichever is less. All right. So let's say that your home appraised for $250,000 and your purchase price was $230,000. You can't get that extra 20 G's at closing, right, to fix up the property. Okay. AZ Leo Life and Shoppers, what's up? Thank you for the question. Good evening to you watching from Tucson, AZ. My late husband was a U.S. Marine. Well, God bless you. Thank you for your husband's service to our great country. May his memory be a blessing. One of my favorite sayings that I've heard, President Ronald Reagan said this, perhaps you've heard it before, that some people spend an entire lifetime wondering if they've made a difference, but the Marines don't have that problem, right? So God bless you. Thank you for watching. Tucson, you're my neighbor. You're right down the street, kind of, right? I'm up in Phoenix bringing you this word this evening. So thank you guys for joining us. What other questions do you have? I need a sip. Where are you guys coming in at? Where are you chiming in from? What branch of service were you in? Do I have any other Marines in the room? Any Army, Navy? Sound off. I want to hear from you. Where are you guys watching from? Do I have anybody overseas? Anybody that's currently deployed, sometimes I have service members that are deployed across the nation. Let me hear from you guys. Don't be so darn shy. Come on, man. I come on this thing live and talk to you, and you can't type in the chat box. There we go. Marine vet. Hey, SAS, Army Brooklyn. Shout out to Brooklyn. All right. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Semper Fi, you guys. So thank you guys for watching. I think I'm going to keep this one brief this evening. If you don't have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and come in for a landing here. I appreciate you guys watching. Before I leave, I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask any more questions. Do you have any questions about VA home loan benefits? Like I said, if you guys want to do an independent consultation with me, you're welcome to do so. No strings attached. I'm not asking for money, right? Just simple value, provide you guys with value. You're going to speak to me. People call me all the time. They go, dude, Jimmy, I'm actually talking to you right now, the guy on the phone. It's like, yeah, that's me. All right. So anyways, just let me know if I can be a resource. I'm here to help. Thank you guys for watching. If I don't see any other questions here, I'm sure we'll talk to you soon. Website, VALoansForVets.com. Thank you for the VA loan education, AZ says. It's my pleasure. I'll let you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday. All right. Thank you, SAS. Appreciate you guys. Good night.